Hello grade 8s and welcome back to another lesson about medieval England. So today's lesson is actually going to be a short one. Oh my gosh, I think I heard you all cheering just then. Just kidding. It's going to be a short one because this is something I'd really like to explore in class together. So your title for today is going to be the Magna Carta. And that is Latin. We're going to come to what that means in a second. But please write down today's date, the title, underline it, and we have two learning objectives. We're going to understand the purpose of the Magna Carta. It is not a monster. You're going to find out what it is in a second. Together, we're going to explore the impact of the Magna Carta from the medieval times when it was first introduced until today. The Magna Carta is still important today and is still widely valued today. So remember guys, pause at any time, go at your own pace, go for a walk halfway through or go get a drink of water. You can do this however you like. All right, let's get started. All right, so let's talk about who's king. We've already talked about William the Conqueror, who, if you recall, he won the Battle of Hastings in 1066. After that, we have his family continue to take over. And I'm going to show you in a second just a family tree. So remember, I sort of planted the seed last lesson that the power of the king is increasing in every heir since William. And now we're coming to William the Conqueror's great-grandson, and we're in the year 1199, and his name is King John. Should we take a quick look at this family tree? Oh, here we go. So we have William the Conqueror here. We've talked about Henry II last lesson, who's responsible for the death of the Archbishop. We are going to be talking about King John today. His brother was King Richard the Lion-Hearted. He died, and we're actually, you know, I'm not going to give you a spoiler alert because we're going to talk about him next lesson. So he dies, and then his brother takes over the throne, and that is King John. Okay. I know everyone has seen the Disney Robin Hood, and this is King John in the movie, and he is portrayed as this greedy, despicable guy, and we might see that maybe that is true. So let's find out. Okay, King John, what was he like at the time? So in 1199, when King John becomes king, so his brother dies, he takes over. King John raised taxes in England and punished his enemies without trial. So these are the two things people really despise him for. If you guys remember back to last year in American history and how much people hated in the 13 colonies when the king would raise taxes, that's a common theme that's going to annoy everyone. They don't want to give up more of their money. So King John is raising taxes. That's annoying people. He is punishing his enemies and not even giving them the right to a fair trial. And that is something that his father, King Henry II, did. He invented, if you remember in the last lesson, maybe he didn't invent it, but he came up with this right to a jury. So they're going to decide what happens to you. Now people aren't even getting trials. He's saying, guilty, you're going to jail. So that is really angering people. Many English nobles are beginning to resent the king's power. So he's using his power over the church. Last lesson we talked about that strange dynamic between the Catholic Church and the King of England. So again, we're seeing that struggle. Another thing is that he was not a good warrior, and at the time it's very important that the leader be a good warrior, and they actually called him King John the Soft Sword. So he did not have a strong sword. He was not a good warrior, and so people are just losing their faith in him. Here's a quick question for you guys. Who do you think is going to have the influence to get King John to stop, you know, all these terrible things he's doing? Do you think it's going to be A, the barons? So this, I'm just going to show you the feudal system quickly. Do you think the feudals have the influence to get King to stop this? Or do you think the knights, are they going to be the people to get King John to stop this? Or the peasants? It's a tough choice, because if you look at the feudal system, you have the barons, who are right under the king. Then we have the knights, who are the warriors, but there are more peasants. They're the biggest group. So who do you think is going to get John to change his mind? I want you to have a quick think right now. Do, 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 do. All right, let's find out.
In 15 years, King John had lost almost all of his dad's land in France, and he had treated his barons very badly. In July 1214, he decided to attack Louvain and lost. That's when the rebel barons started plotting.
The king is hiring an army.
We need to do something.
Let's meet with him. Let's confront him.
They tried meeting with King John, renouncing their allegiance, even capturing London. But again and again, John ignored them. The rebel barons even considered asking Prince Louis to become king. Bonjour! This got King John's attention, and in June 1215, the rebel barons arranged to meet him in neutral territory. Running.
You have no choice.
King John had no choice. He accepted the barons' demands and put his royal seal on the Charter of Liberties.
So if you guessed the barons, then you were correct. So they are the people who are able to get King John to curb his difficult reign. So let's talk about what the Magna Carta was. So the nobles, as we had discussed, the barons, they met with King John at a meadow called Runnymede. That might be a really good keyword to underline. And that was in the year 1215. They forced John to sign a document of rights called the Magna Carta. So it was not a mythological monster. It is an important document of rights. What is a right? This is probably a word you've heard a lot. And basically what a right is, it's not quite a law, but it's something that everyone is entitled to. So I came up with this definition to help you understand. So a right is something that every human being deserves, no matter who they are, where they live, so that we can live in a world that is just and fair. Today we might call these human rights, but at the time of the Magna Carta, this is the first time when rights are being introduced to medieval England. Okay, so let's get back to the Magna Carta. So the Magna Carta offers these rights to everyone who lives under King John's power. And the Magna Carta is going to last not just from King John and when he dies, but from when he signed it until today. So the Magna Carta is still important today. Not only did it give people more rights, it took away some of the king's powers. They forced King John to sign the document of rights called the Magna Carta, or in English it would translate to the Great Charter. The Magna Carta took away some of the king's powers, so he could no longer collect taxes unless a group called the Great Council agreed to it, so other people have to give him the permission. And people, if they're accused of crimes, they now have the right to fair trials by their peers or equals. So that means a jury system is in place. Doesn't matter if you're a peasant, you're a knight, you're a noble, you are going to have a jury decide whether you're guilty or not. Another thing that is introduced, you should definitely get this in your notes and please underline it, not a mythological monster, but the habeas corpus. Say it with me, habeas corpus. It's a cool phrase. Habeas corpus was introduced, which protects a person from being imprisoned indefinitely, so for their life, without a trial. So the king can no longer say, you over there, you're going to jail forever because you took some of my land. That's not going to happen anymore. The king can't do that. Habeas corpus means that you are going to get a trial. All right. We already looked at that. What is next? Why is the Magna Carta important? The Magna Carta also stated that kings and nobles both had certain rights and duties. The Magna Carta was important because it helped to establish the idea that people have rights and that the power of the government should be limited. So the king can no longer do whatever he wants. He has to ask for permission. And the Magna Carta makes sure of that. So it has limited his power. He can no longer just ask everyone to pay an insane amount of taxes. He can no longer do that. He can no longer send people to jail forever, which is great. Okay, and let's talk about the impact of the Magna Carta. So we're going to talk about this document more in class, but just to give you a sneak preview of what's going to happen now that the King of England has signed this. So in the 1200s, another English king called Edward called for a meeting of people from different parts of England. Their job was to advise him and help him make laws. So now kings who are following in the footsteps of John, who has signed the Magna Carta, he's asking for people to help him create laws. So he's not deciding this on his own. He's having other people from different parts of the country bringing in their experience to help him. This gathering became known as Parliament, an important step forward towards representative government. So today, if you think about England, you know that there is the Queen, she is on our money, and you know that there are a few princes floating around. So there's Prince Charles, there's Prince Harry, there's Prince William, who's just had those 2 babies, which has been in the news. So you know that there's still the royal family, but there's also a parliament, and those are the people, if you remember, Brexit was in the news recently, and that prime minister stepped down, so he's part of parliament. Now there's a new prime minister in the UK who is female, and that's all part of parliament. And this is so important because now that there is this growth of parliament who is helping control, at the time it's England, today it's the United Kingdom. Now we have people who are voted in, they're from all over the country. They have all the different experience they bring together to help rule the country. So no longer is it just the king. You also have Parliament who is helping run the country. So that is so important. At first, parliaments were made up of 2 knights from every county, 2 people from every town, and all high-ranking nobles and church officials. Later, Parliament divided into 2 houses. High-ranking nobles and church officials met at the House of Lords. Knights and townspeople met at the House of Commons. So those are 2 houses today that are still a part of Parliament. So this is really important history in the making. We're going to talk about more in class. So this is you're done for today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, grade 8s.